sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from disease. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one be subject to suffering. May there be peace everywhere by God's grace. Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is concept of God in Hinduism. I am using a word here, Hinduism, which was not even known to our ancestors, and I was born in Hinduism. The British ruled India for about 200 years. They invented that term, Hinduism, because the people in India used to be called by some Hindus. That's why the British created that word Hinduism, like socialism or communism. Our ancestors used to call this religion the perennial religion or eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma. And the speciality of this religion is that the word blasphemy is not there. So any question can be asked, and the answer to such a question will also be given by somebody who knows the answer. That's why this religion has innumerable ideas based on the questions that come to people's minds about religion. And answers also have been given. So what is the concept of God in Sanatana Dharma? Yes, let us discuss those things this morning. And all the truths that are from the beginning of human existence are there in this religion. This religion has a library containing everything, containing the lower truths and the highest truth also. Once one boy came here, he was wearing something like a robe. So I asked him, "What are you wearing?" Then he turned around, and on the back of that robe was written, God, the word. I said, "What does God do?" Then that little boy said, God can do everything. God can fly through the air, God can kill elephants, tigers, lions, etc. I also can do that, that boy said. I doubted whether the boy could kill even a fly, but he thought so. He thought that he was God and he could do all those things. His mind was at a level where that seemed to be true. That is, he has to start with lower truth, and gradually he will learn better. Children in this country start with the concept of tooth fairy. They think that there is a fairy which appears when a child's first milk tooth is put under the pillow by the parents, and then that child being a good child, the tooth fairy will bring a gift for that child. All those things are done by the parents though. And the child's tooth is put under the pillow. In the morning when the child wakes up, that tooth is gone, but a $5 bill has appeared there. And who did that? The parents would say, the tooth fairy did that because you are a good child. Had you been a bad child, the tooth fairy would not bring any gift for you. So a child has to travel from one tooth to another tooth. When the child will start growing up, the child would come to know that the tooth fairy was not real. There was some higher truth. So from lower truth we travel to higher truth. And the highest truth is what? According to Hinduism, the highest truth is divinity. And they use the word Brahman to mean divinity. If we go back to the primitive age, then we'll come to know that people had some concept of heaven and hell at that time. And how did that concept come? Well, when they would fall asleep, then they would see some dead people in their dreams. And those dead people in the dreams seem to be healthy and whole and wearing nice clothes and everything. And the dreamer would interact with those dream people. And they all seem to be real, just as the dream world was real. And when that person wakes up, then he will see that those dream people are gone. Then they will start looking for them. That's how their concept came, that after death the person goes on existing. But that person appears only in the dream world. So when a man wakes up and he looks for those dream people, they are not to be seen anywhere. Then some of them might have seen a high-flying bird, like an eagle flying higher and higher, becoming smaller and smaller, and then eventually become invisible. So also, they thought that these people have gone to a high plane of existence. That's why they are invisible. Then they gradually thought that these people go to a place high up there, which is heaven. And what about the other people who are not that good? Do they also go to heaven? They said no. They thought they must go to some place where they will suffer. And in those days they used to think that the earth was like a flat disc. They would go up to the top of a hill and they would look around and they would see that the horizon was round, and in the horizon in some places there was water. That was the ocean. They thought that this is how the world was. It was a flat round disc, and under that disc there is a dark region where there is no light or anything, and that they called hell. And that those bad people after their death would go there. and suffer. That's what they thought, and they got some satisfaction by thinking that way. But gradually these ideas kept on changing. And most of these new ideas came from that part of the world which was very habitable, where there was abundance of food, and so people had time to think of these things. And we call that region Indian subcontinent. That's why many thinkers were found in that part of the world. And so they gradually came to understand that, some of them came to understand that the earth was not a flat round disk, because the utterance is there in the books of Hinduism. Karatala kalita amalakavad amalam vidanti ye golam. What does it mean? It means the earth is like a myrobalan fruit, or like a plum, spherical plum, which is on my palm. So the earth is spherical, it is not flat. Then the idea of heaven and hell kept on changing, because previously they used to think that heaven was up above and hell was down below, but when they came to know that the earth was spherical, then that idea had to be changed, you see. And along with that, other ideas also started coming. The word earth is spherical. And gradually more and more thinkers came. Then in the ancient book of Hinduism called Katha Upanishad, we read, Yadidam kincha jagat sarvam prana ejati nisritam. Whatever exists in this world, they have evolved from cosmic energy. And that cosmic energy is divinity, so to say. Everything is vibrating. And vibrations are not all the same. And the idea came that there are many worlds like this, and each world has its own set of vibrations. And each of these planes of existence would be called a loka. So the question has been raised in Hinduism, how many such lokas are there? Then the answer has been given. That is, innumerable lokas are there. So, are these lokas above or below? No. They occupy the same space, but their vibrations are different. And how did these lokas come? Then they thought that there is a creator of all these lokas. And that creator they called God. And this world was a world of time, space and causation. God was transcendental. God, being the creator, existed before these worlds, different worlds were created, before these planes were created, planes of existence were created. So, what is God like? The Hinduism has raised that question, but the answer is that we cannot say God is like this or God is like that. God is abhang manoso gocharam. God cannot be described through words, or God cannot be known by an ordinary mind. There are two types of knowledge. One is theoretical knowledge and the other one is experiential knowledge. What motherly love for the mother's children is, that for us is theoretical knowledge, because we are not mothers. But it is the mothers who know what that experiential love is. I have been to that holy city Benares a few times in connection with my work with the Ramakrishna Order. And it so happened that my mother, who was very elderly, she wanted to live in that holy city and she was living alone. And sometimes I would go to see her because she had wanted to see me. And then I met some of her friends. One of our friends was a lady who was very friendly. She was also of my mother's age. And so I could talk freely to her. Then I asked her one question. Our scriptures say that motherly love is something which is experiential love. We cannot think of what that love is or that feeling the mothers have for their children. What do you say about that? Then she said, it is true. Then she said, when many years ago a child was born to me, when the child was 2 months old, the child died. Then I felt so hurt. Then when she was saying that, she started crying and as though suffering. Even though the child which died was only 2 months old, but she felt so much for that child. That is what is called experiential motherly love. I said to her, Auntie, you don't have to talk more about it. Please be your usual self. Then she became all right later. So, one is experiential knowledge, the other one is theoretical knowledge. We have the theoretical knowledge of what motherly love is. But it is the mothers who know what experiential love is, how the mothers really feel love for their children. So also, for some people, the knowledge of God is experiential. They've experienced God. How? With the help of their highly purified mind. And such a mind is called a mind which is preponderantly sattvic mind. That means there is something called sattva guna which constitutes the mind of some people, and the characteristic of that guna is that the person who has such a mind has purity. It is not possible for that person to think of anything inferior. It is natural for that mind to think of divinity. It is such people who have such minds who can have experiential knowledge of God, but not others. And according to them, only one such God is there. Ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti. In the Rig Veda, that ancient book, we read that divinity is one, but other sages call the same divinity by different names. Because in the primitive age, people used to think that behind some natural forces there was some power, and they thought that those powers were divine powers, and they conceived of certain deities. Certain deities were responsible for the storm, some deities were responsible for that ocean, and those deities would control the ocean. Flood and all these things would be controlled. And when a storm would come and would destroy buildings and trees, they would think that there is a deity which is responsible for that. Because ordinary human beings could not do any such thing. That's why they saw that. Then they call them deities. So that's why the concept of many deities came. A deity in control of the storm, a deity in control of the ocean. That way. Deity in control of sunlight and all this. But the ancient sages of India, they came to know that there was only one divinity, but different people saw the same divinity differently. That divinity truly is one. It is like the white screen in a movie theater. And people, the viewers and the projectionists, they project different colors on that movie screen, and they see different objects there. But truly speaking, it is the movie screen which is the real thing. When the projection is stopped, then the movie screen is still there. Its existence made the existence of all other things which were projected on the movie screen. So also God is one, but the projectionists are the human minds. They project all those ideas on God, and they think that God is different. God is many. It is like the Seattle sky. Seattle sky is usually grey. It is a rainy city, that's what people used to think. And so, pointing to the grey sky of Seattle, somebody would say, tell me what is the color of the sky. But each mind is like a pair of colored eyeglasses. Some are reddish, some are greenish, some are bluish, and of different color. And each person, when he tries to look at that same sky, the sky appears to change colors. It is reddish, bluish, greenish, depending upon the color of the mind. So also the same divinity, one and only divinity, which was present before creation and which has created this world, appears to be different to different people. That's why some project their personalities which they have in their minds on divinity. So divinity becomes mother, divinity becomes father. All these are projections of human minds. The divinity can be a child also. That's why God can become a child. And all these ideas are present in Hinduism. One can look upon God as one's father, as one's mother, and at the same time one can look upon God as one's child also. All these ideas are present in Hinduism. That's why you see that impersonal divinity appears to us as so many divinities. And then also it has been mentioned in Hinduism that God is Sat Chit Anandam, existence, consciousness and bliss. These words are difficult to translate because God cannot be described properly. Avang manaso gocharam. It cannot be described through words correctly. An ordinary mind cannot know God. But still people try. That's why their minds project so many ideas on God. God, as I said, is like a white movie screen, and on that all these different ideas about God are being presented. So, and they also mentioned that God is Sat Chit Anandam. God is consciousness and God is Anandam. What is Anandam? The English word they use to mean Anandam is bliss. This world is considered the world of pairs of opposites in Hinduism. Everything that we know belongs to a pair. If I know darkness, I should know what is light. If I know joy, then I should know what is sorrow. If I know happiness, then I shall know what is sadness. There are so many pairs. It is not possible for anyone to know only one thing and not the other. A person who is born blind does not know what darkness is, nor does that person know what light is. To know one, that person has to know its opposite. I asked a person who was born blind, do you know what light is? And that person said, not experientially, but theoretically I know. It is the opposite of darkness, he said. Just like hot water is the opposite of cold water. That's what that person said. So, what is Anandam? Is it bliss? No, not really. The best word which can be used to describe God is Shanti. Shanti or peace. Peace is neither enjoyment nor suffering. If a person has a severe headache and then he is in a state of suffering, then a doctor gives him one painkiller. So he takes that tablet and after 1 hour his headache is gone. He is not suffering anymore. But is he enjoying now? No, he is not enjoying. He is neither enjoying nor suffering. He has found relief from suffering. And at the same time he has found relief from enjoyment also. So the word peace is something like that. It is a state of relief, so to say. That's why God is like that, peace. That's why in the scriptures of Hinduism, the word Shanti has been used so many, many times. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It is to mean that God is neither enjoyment nor suffering. God is beyond the pairs of opposites. It is interesting that this word is present in other traditions also. I heard that shalom, that word means also peace. And even in Islam, a much newer religion, the word Islam is used, and that word Islam means peace. So that is a word which can hint at what God is. God is Shanti. Also, as I am talking about the concept of God in Hinduism, let me tell you that in Hinduism there are expressions like God is Satyam, God is the truth, Jnanam, God is true knowledge, God is Anantam, God is infinity. Yes, in God there is nothing which is finite. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Not only that, they also say, Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, everything is no other than divinity. These are called great sentences in Hinduism. In Sanskrit, Mahavakyas. And according to many, if these great sentences are saved, the rest of the scriptures of Hinduism is lost. Still Hinduism has been saved. So these Mahavakyas are other Mahavakyas are all there, like Tattamasi, you are divinity. Aham Brahmasmi, I am divinity. Prajnanam Brahma, supreme knowledge is divinity. I am Atma Brahma, what is considered as the soul, that is also no other than divinity. So these are called Mahavakyas or great sentences. So according to Hinduism, God is everything. God is everything. There is nothing which is not divinity. But divinity is equally present everywhere, but not equally manifested everywhere. In a non-living object, like a chair or a table, divinity is equally present but not manifested. Divinity is more manifested in beings equipped with minds. Let's say in human minds, there is more manifestation of divinity. And some other objects and things are there, they seem to have some sensation, like a tree, a plant has sensation of cold and heat and all these things. But they don't have minds, but is divinity present in them? Yes, divinity is equally present, but not equally manifested. In an animal, their minds are more manifested. That's why divinity is more manifested there. So, divinity is equally present everywhere, but not manifested everywhere. Even among human beings, in some human beings, divinity is more manifested, while in other human beings, divinity is much less manifested. Manifestation differs. If divinity be compared to electric light, then each person is like an electric bulb. When the bulb is lit up, some bulbs give out only 10 watts of light. And then some other bulbs give out maybe 100 watt lights. Then there could be bulbs which give out 1000 watt lights. So depending upon the manifestation of divinity of that person's mind. Then there are minds which give out 1 trillion watt light. And such light bulbs are called divine incarnations. Behind me, if you look carefully, then you will see the pictures of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi. Both are called divine incarnations. That means they look like human beings, but they are full of divinity. Manifestation of divinity is complete in them. That's why they are like multi-trillion watt light bulbs. It is from such people we get to know about divinity, what divinity is. Experiential knowledge of divinity, if you want to know about them theoretically, then they are there to tell us. It is they who tell us what divinity is. This is the concept of God in Hinduism. Science has tried to find out what was the source of this creation. And there is one concept, Big Bang theory. There was a an explosion in ancient times, and then the world was created. Along with this world, time and space were also created. But what was there which exploded? Because when the creation happened, that means the explosion happened. Before explosion, what exploded? That answer is not clearly given in science. But Hinduism gives the answer. That is, that explosion is the creation of this world, of a world of time, space and causation. And that is due to divinity. Divinity was there before that. That Sat-Chit Anandam, divinity was there. And that divinity has created this world. And it is always there. So the teachings of Hinduism aim at only one thing, to let us know that we are no other than that divinity. Any kind of limitation makes us unhappy. A person who is limited in wealth, limited in physical strength or mental capability, that person is not happy. Because that person wants to go beyond limitations. Why people want to go beyond limitations? Because that is the nature of that person. Infinity is the nature. Once I went to see a very elderly and highly developed, spiritually developed Swami of our order. He was saintly. His name was Swami Bhaskarananda. And when he looked at me, he asked me, "How old are you?" Then I told him what my age was. Then he said, "No, that's not what you are. When you were born, you were a tiny little baby. But you are not satisfied with yet limitation. You wanted to grow up. And your world also kept on growing. First he thought that you are born in a certain home. Then the thought came, no, you are born in a certain country. Then Swami Bhaskarananda said, but we should not stop there. We should keep on expanding our ego until it becomes infinite. And this ego in itself causes certain limitations. It is an idea of the conscious mind only. And the mind is not unlimited, but it has to be expanded and made infinity. Then all the limitations of the mind will go away. And what will remain is divinity. Our senior Swamis say that the Ramakrishna mission, which is the name of our order in India, that is Ramakrishna ego-crushing machine. If I am the owner of something, I cannot be that thing. So I am the owner of my physical body, so I cannot be my physical body. I am different from it. The same way I am different from my sense organs, motor organs. And what about my mind? Well, I own my mind, so I cannot be my mind. I have to be different from it as the owner. But my idea of my individual existence is a thought of my conscious mind. And that thought is I or ego. It is purely mental. As I am not my mind, so I cannot be my ego. I have to transcend my ego. And when the ego is gone, then what I am, I will get to know, and that is divinity. Aham Brahmasmi. I am divinity. That is the teaching. So that's why some senior Swami said to a newcomer, he said, Ramakrishna mission is the ego-crushing machine. Not Ramakrishna mission, Ramakrishna machine. That is ego-crushing machine. You have come here, eventually you will get rid of your ego and your true identity will be revealed, which is divinity. Let us remember that. And this will give us hope, because that I or you and everything is divinity is the teaching of Hinduism. Thank you all for listening.